Just clap. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa Purajagacharya Ashtottara Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Purajagacharya Ashtottara Tata Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 27th day of December 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are beginning chapter 10 on 419. I think you may have a different book there. No, I think she has, right? Okay. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. This chapter is entitled The Opulence of the Absolute. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Go ahead, Madam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Go ahead, Russ. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Bhuya eva Mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vachaha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshyami Hitakamyaya. Want to try it, Raj? No. Okay. All right. And you? Okay. Not that. Okay. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Bhuya, again, eva, certainly, Mahabaho, or mighty armed, Shrinu, just hear, may, my, Paramam, supreme, Vachaha, instruction, Yat, that which, te, to you, aham, I, Priyamanaya, thinking you dear to me, Vakshyami, say, Hitakamyaya, for your benefit. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, listen again, O mighty armed Arjun, because you are my dear friend, for your benefit I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. Purport. The word Bhagavan is explained thus by Parashara Muni. One who is full in 6 opulences, who has full strength, full fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation, is Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. While Krishna was present on this earth, he displayed all 6 opulences. Therefore, great sages like Parashara Muni have all accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now Krishna is instructing Arjuna in more confidential knowledge of his opulences and his work. Previously, beginning with the 7th chapter, the Lord has already explained his different energies and how they are acting. Now, in this chapter, he explains his specific opulences to Arjuna. In the previous chapter, he has clearly explained his different energies to establish devotion in firm conviction. Again, in this chapter, he tells Arjuna about his manifestations and various opulences. The more one hears about the Supreme God, the more one becomes fixed in devotional service. One should always hear about the Lord in the association of devotees. That will enhance one's devotional service. Discourses in the society of devotees can take place only among those who are really anxious to be in Krishna consciousness. Others cannot take part in such discourses. The Lord clearly tells Arjuna that because Arjuna is very dear to him, for his benefit such discourses are taking place. Om Jnana Timurandasya Jnanandana Salakya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome. We'll get you some books. Okay? Okay, so we're beginning now this chapter 10, which is very exceptional because it contains the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna is beginning here by explaining to Arjuna that I'm going to reveal even more confidential knowledge, and the reason is because he's dear to Krishna. Teham priyamanaya, I'm going to tell you this new information for your own benefit. So this whole Bhagavad Gita is actually spoken for our benefit. It's not Krishna just wanting to glorify himself or anything like that. He is glorifying himself so that we can know something about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and begin to reestablish our relationship with him. That's the whole idea. So this chapter has several sections, and most of it is taken up where Krishna is describing again how we can see him even in the material world. For instance, he says, of bodies of water, I am the vast ocean. So we're very fortunate and walk down a few blocks and there's that vast ocean. Well, what do you see there? Unbelievable depth. We know there's an incredible variety of living beings there, right? And there's a tremendous power to it. I happen to be watching one little clip about the power of tsunamis. Tsunamis are very awe-inspiring. And we have a special relationship with tsunamis since we have a potential tsunami right here. There's a huge trench out there, right? And it's known. When I moved here from Miami back in '89, I came from the land of the hurricanes to the land of the earthquakes. You know, there you always had to watch, especially at a certain time of the year, you had to watch the weather, channel, so that you wouldn't be caught unawares. And but then that passed, and you have some warning. You know, okay, this is coming up, boiling up. You know, so batten down the hatches or get off the beach because I live right on the beach. But here, it's like there's really no warning. If the big one comes, it's, you know, and we've had earthquakes. I remember I was sitting up there where we have the ashram now. There was a gift store. This gift store was up there, and you could go up there and chant your rounds. There was a place to chant. I'm chanting. We had a different set of chandeliers, but they were still. And suddenly the whole building starts shaking, you know. And I get up and I run out, and I'm looking out, you know, and I'm seeing these chandeliers all shaking. The deities were closed like they are now. And I go out on the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is shaking. It's like you're on a surfboard or something. And before I even had a chance to become scared, it diminished. It obviously wasn't the big one. But it gives you kind of just a feeling of how unsteady material life is. You know, it can all be changed in a moment, you know. So Krishna talks about, of bodies of water, I am the ocean. He says in this chapter. So when you see the ocean, you can say, oh, this is a very powerful manifestation of Krishna's energy. So you remember Krishna. And there's a whole list of aquatics. I'm the shark. Of warriors, I'm Arjuna, because Arjuna is sitting right there. And a big list like that. At the end, he says, what's the need for all of this list, Arjuna? Whenever you see anything that's glorious or powerful or awe-inspiring, know that is a reflection of a spark of my splendor. So the idea is that one should be fixed on Krishna even in the material world. But before that, he speaks these 4 essential verses, which is 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which we won't get to tonight, where he basically says, I'm God. Aham sarvasya bhavavo. Everything has come from me. This whole world is part of my energies. Has come from me. Those who understand this, they worship me with all their heart. How do they do so? They come together and they glorify me. Their minds, matchitta, madgata prana, their life energy is directed to my service. And they enjoy spiritual pleasure by coming together and glorifying me. The essence of which is Sankirtan. I chant Hare Krishna, you listen, you chant Hare Krishna, I listen. And before long we're standing up, we're dancing, and we're both chanting and hearing. And this is a way in which you can enjoy the spiritual energy. And then he says, those who act in this way, I give them the intelligence, he's in our heart, by which they can come to me. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Then the last of the four, by the shining lamp of knowledge, I within their hearts destroy the darkness of ignorance. And Arjuna then speaks a couple of verses, says, yes, I recognize you as the Supreme Lord, and it's not just me alone, but it's all these great souls and everything. So that's kind of a very pivotal point in the whole Bhagavad Gita. Anyway, we'll get to it soon. So here, Prabhupada is talking about the word Bhagavan. This is part of a verse that was composed by Parashara Muni, who's mentioned in this purport, who's the father of Vyasadeva. And what his verse is, which is accepted, what does Bhagavan mean? It means possessor of opulences, and it's of all opulences. And so those are grouped under 6 categories. So it's Aishwaryasya Samagrasya, Viryasya Yashashak Shriya, Jnana Vairagrayos Shannam Bhaga Itingana. Shanna means 6. These 6 opulences are possessed in full, in infinite measure, by the Supreme Person. So what are they? First is Aishwarya, which is what we commonly know as opulence, which is wealth. Aishwarya and Samagrasya means all of it, or the supreme amount. Samagrasya Viryasya, strength of all kinds. There's sensory strength, the ability to see. Krishna is omniscient. He sees everything, But there's also strength of power and muscles. And commonly, this temple is named after Govardhan Adari. Giri means a mountain. He who lifted a mountain with his pinky. So this is one aspect of showing his strength. But he created all the universes. What could be stronger than that? He defeated the great demon Hiranyakashipu. In so many ways, he showed his strength, greatest strength. Yashasha, fame. Who could be more famous than God? People, so many great, so-called great personalities were famous so long, but they've been forgotten. Who was the 6th Egyptian king in the 2nd century BC? Who knows? I don't know. You have to look it up, and you'd have to Google it, right? And Google, isn't it? At that time, he was very famous, but God is always famous. And Prabhupada, the devotees want to make not God famous, but Krishna famous as God. And understand, so he's becoming famous around. So the Yashashak Shriya, now Shriya is beauty. This you oftentimes, feel, understand or see, read about in Western literature that God is, so all attractive and beautiful. But that's one of the great opulences. So many, we also hanker for that. So much money is spent, billions of dollars trying to stay beautiful as you get older. And trying to beautify the body, right? But Krishna is beautiful, spiritually beautiful. It doesn't depend on anything material. And he showed that in Vrindavan, especially. All attractive. That's what, it means. So many ways. So Shriya, Jnana, knowledge. Who could be more knowledgeable than God? He's omniscient. He knows everything past, present, and future. And Vairagya, this is another opulence which is not normally thought of as one, but being so full in oneself that you don't need anything. In other words, he's detached. He's detached from everything. He has, Vairagya means no need for everything since he's all, self-satisfied. But the interesting thing is that in his own spiritual abode, he acts like he needs so much, his relationship with the boys and with his parents and with his lovers, that he also, tracks them out in the forest, famously with the flute, right? So why did he need to have the gopis? No, not really. But he wanted them to feel that and enjoy the rasa, and he wanted to enjoy that rasa. So therefore, there's a covering by which he doesn't show his supreme renunciation. There's actually an important distinction between tyaga and vairagya. Vairagya means lack of material desire for oneself. And Krishna has that ultimately. But that's also an important characteristic that devotees try to develop. The more that you don't feel the need for material things, but you very much feel the need for establishing the relation with Krishna, that's you're showing your advancement. You're becoming attached again to spiritual matters, which is good, and detached from material things, which keep you bound to this world of suffering. So that vairagya, which goes with knowledge, which is also one of his opulences, infinite knowledge. So knowledge, a good example of that is like, a mother is raising a child, and the child is becoming too much attached to cookies and cakes and pies and candy, right? So the mother is convincing that this is not good for you. In other words, if the child grows up and he gets the knowledge, yes, I'll become sick and I'll suffer. And I have this example. My uncle Jerry, he got diabetes. He ate too many sweets, and you could see, right? So now I know I have to. So if you know the evils of too much material attachment, then that will help you to have vairagya. But the vairagya really becomes fixed when you turn your attachment to Krishna. That's why there's this nice verse, anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandha yuktam vairagyam uchate. This is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. So it means that bhakti means taking the things of this material world where appropriate and engaging them in Krishna's service. Now that includes our own facilities, our senses and our mind and all of these different things, our wealth. So that you're not attached to the things themselves, but you become attached to Krishna. That's the idea. Is that I have a certain amount of money, and I can use it to buy sense gratification for myself. Okay, that's one way of using it. But then you become more entangled in the material world. If you use it for buying flowers for Krishna and helping the devotees to buy books to distribute like that, then you become attached to Krishna. You see? Krishna is all attractive, and he bestows that attraction on you. He reveals himself in such a way. So that's real vairagya that we try to develop. So this is Prabhupada is talking about this word Bhagavan and Parashara Muni, and in this chapter Krishna will show some of those opulences by which he is known as Bhagavan. And this chapter is meant to deepen our faith even more that Krishna is God, and that we should try to reconnect with him and develop our love for him, as all these chapters are. But this is that's one of the main purposes here. Yes, sir. Yeah, we need the mic. You won't hear any amplification, but it's amplifying.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
So, question is a little bit lengthy, but
a little bit lengthy. Okay. Well, we have about what? Okay.
No, I won't take more than a minute. So my question is why polarities exist, like even back in those days, like we were discussing yesterday, the Kansa and different demons, and they were much more powerful, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, and all the gods we see, even Krishna with the Sudarshan Chakra, right? Lord Ram we see with bow and arrow.
Yes.
Shiva we see with Trishul, right?
Yes.
So they all carry weapons. So my question is, why do polarities exist? And some people say opposite values are complementary to each other. There is dark, that's why we know there is light. But why the existence of good and bad? Why not just one aspect of life?
Okay. So you call them polarities, but the dualities is another way. Yeah. Well, this is the world of duality, the material world. And the reason why the material world exists is because we, souls who are here, we didn't want to serve Krishna somehow or other, and we can't trace it out. Why would we do that? But it happened, and that means that Krishna is God. He's enjoying in the spiritual world, and if we do it right, we take pleasure in His enjoyment, and as servants, and we're happy eternally there. And that's what the vast majority are doing. But because this is the key element. What is it about the spiritual world that Krishna has developed that he takes so much pleasure there? It's love. It's real love. Love means taking pleasure in the pleasure of the beloved. That's the essence of love. And Krishna is in the role of the supreme enjoyer, and those who love him take pleasure in his pleasure. And because we're part and parcel of him, we also take pleasure. There's this wonderful sutra in the Vedanta Sutra, which is Anandamayo Bhyasat. The suffix maya in Sanskrit means composed of or filled with. Just like there's a favorite name in India, Karunamayi, filled with compassion. Right? So Krishna is Anandamaya. He's filled with Ananda. But what is it? How does he experience that Ananda? In association with his loving devotees. This is very similar to the material world. What really is valuable here? It's not just, trying to enjoy alone. How many Dorito bags can you eat while watching TV, without being... But really, to a mother who is taking care of her child, and the child is smiling, and that relationship is something substantial, but it's temporary. But in the spiritual world, that's the substance of what's going on. And Krishna is very creative in creating all kinds of scenarios and situations where that love can be expressed and experienced. But in order for love to exist, there has to be independence. There has to be some free will. It has to be freely given. Prabhupada famously said, Krishna doesn't want you to love him at the point of a revolver. Love me or else. That's not love, right? That's slavery. So somehow or other, we decided that we wanted to try to be Krishna rather than love Krishna. And as soon as that idea comes, then it's an impurity there, and it's affecting the whole perfect harmonious mood of Goloka Vrindavan. And so there needs to be a place where we can try to enact that mistake and learn from experience, hopefully, after time, that this is not really our platform of enjoyment. And in the association of Krishna himself, or more likely his representative, and the books that he gives, like Bhagavad Gita, we can start to develop faith in the process of devotional service, and once again return home back to Godhead. Prabhupada's famous phrase, back home, back to Godhead. So there needs to be a place, and that place is the material world. And that's why there's demons. Now the interesting thing is that the most horrific demons, like Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, and everything, they're devotees. They were devotees who fell from the Vaikuntha. And they had this sentence of 3 births as demons, and then they would be able to return, because they interfered with the 4 Kumaras entering into the Vaikuntha. There's a whole story behind it. So they're acting as perfect demons, which means arch enemies of God, or even the godly. Hiranyakashipu horrifically wanted to kill his own son because he's chanting Hare Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj was a great devotee, took birth there. So the purpose of this material world, it is the world of duality. It means that there's pleasure, which is fleeting, but it's still pleasure, and there's also pain. There's darkness and there's light. There's ignorance and knowledge. And so these dualities, it's called the delusion of duality. In the end of the chapter 7, he speaks of that. Yesham dvandakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvandva mohane makta bhajante mam judavata. That this duality of delusion, what is that? Let's see if I can get that verse. Because you talk about dualities. Okay. Ichcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhuta nisang moham sarge yanti parantapa. Now Prabhupada took this verse as describing how we came to the material world from the spiritual world. Ichcha means desire, dvesha means abhorrence, samutena, arisen from our desire and hate, or abhorrence. We desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, and we hate to serve him anymore. From that arises dvandva mohena, the duality of delusion, or rather the delusion of duality, O Bharata. And sarvabhutani samoham, thus bewildered, all living entities who are here thus enter sargeyanti, they enter into the creation, O Parantapa. So this duality is here because there can never be pure happiness here. there's always around the corner, the passage of time, whatever situation you're in is going to change. You may be satisfied now, but it's going to become horrible. Just by the force of time, your body ages. What you could enjoy 10 years ago, you can't enjoy anymore. It's like I'm 75, just turned 75. So what am I so happy about? Come on, you can't even enjoy it. No, but the point is, I've been doing this for 50 years. I joined in 73. So once you tap in to that reservoir of pleasure, which is Krishna consciousness, it's not dependent completely, on your senses and all the externals. So that helps you keep. I don't feel like I'm 75. I feel pretty much in the same spirit as when I joined. When I joined, I felt a lot younger. I was only 25, but I felt, I feel like I'm 18 again, because of dancing and chanting, and it wasn't. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had bouts of depression. It was coming up the Vietnam War. That would depress anybody. I mean, do you realize how horrible that is? I'm in the country. I didn't want to go to work because I had to pay taxes that would then go to the Defense Department. They dropped bombs on these babies in Vietnam. That was literally what was going on, for no good reason. It was insanity. I spent billions and billions of dollars. And so I was, against the war. I would go on demonstration. That was my mentality at that time. I wasn't religious at all. But we failed. After all of that demonstrating in the 60s and everything, and then Nixon gets elected. He was the worst. And the war just perpetuated, and I just became depressed, So anyway, I went to college, but I figured I'd turn my draft card in and go to jail as a resistor. That didn't even work out. My father, bless his soul, he was able to get me a 4F. Anyone who knows anything about the draft board knows that that's like gold. 4F means you're so debilitated and you're disqualified. They're not even going to bother you anymore. You're not going to be drafted. Oh, thank you. Anyway, did you ever hear that? Yeah, I'm telling you, this was the 60s and 70s. What was going on? So, by Krishna's grace, by his arrangement, I became very ill. I got a serious case of hepatitis. I was in the hospital for a month. This was just when the moonshot was going on, July. Huh?
Hepatitis B, the liver.
Yeah.
I had that too.
Yeah. But I mean, it's hepatitis C is worse. That's like a chronic that can kill you. Yeah. But anyway, but it was serious, and so when I came out, I was pretty weak, and I needed somehow to get my health back. So by that time, by good fortune, I became attracted to Eastern music. Ravi Shankar was big, and George Harrison was the Beatles, So I was a little open to Eastern thought, and so I said, let me try this yoga process, Hatha Yoga. And that was my entry into the world. And it's a long story, but eventually I met the devotees and started chanting Hare Krishna.
How long you did Hatha Yoga?
I did it even in the movement I did it. They told me we don't do that here, and I couldn't do it. But then after a while I got my own room and I started doing it again. I'm still doing it. I quote, stand on my head. But I don't actually support. They have this nice device where all the weight is on your shoulders, and it's very useful to have the reverse posture, But the point is that I didn't look at that, okay, this is how I'm going to be happy by getting, a healthy body. This is to maintain a healthy body to serve Krishna. But there's so much joy in Krishna consciousness. You could, in the holy name, it's not an ordinary mantra. If you really get into it and you just concentrate, no matter where you're coming from, you're going to feel some, peace, happiness. Did you have some similar experience? Okay. Oh, not on the floor though. The book. Sorry. But if you're going to ask a question, we ask you to speak into the mic. Is that okay? We have one right behind you. Yeah. Is it on? Make sure it's on. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
My question is, I find Krishna in every religion. I know it's crazy, like God, like I was brought up Christian, and then, see, I'm Mongolian, Chinese, Black, Creole, and Spanish. I'm mixed with everything that don't like each other. I was telling him that. And so I have to clear away all my generational karma. since my mom didn't clear it, it goes down to me, the firstborn. No, I had a twin named Sahatra. I'm still trying to learn what his name means, but he's a monk. But it was weird. I'm not trying to take too much time, but
what would be good if we have a lot of different books. This is a kind of a really advanced book, although we study it every day.
Someone stole mine, but
you had this book once?
Yeah, Bhagavad
I
had
Gita,
it
as it is.
Yeah, but the thing is, someone stole mine yesterday.
Well, we have more.
My question is, see, I feel like, you know how I felt like I met Krishna before. I don't know why. Like,
we all have.
He's in everybody.
But why don't we just try to finish the class, and maybe we can talk afterward. We're going to have a little ceremony, and we also have nice prasad, some little refreshments. But we can talk, okay? Yeah. Yeah, we'll meet later. But okay, so I wanted to proceed with the 10th chapter here, and the idea is that the dualities are there because we need them to learn. You know, if this world was complete bliss, we wouldn't want to go back to Godhead. You know, but it's inevitable because we're in a material body that we are limited. When we realize that ultimately we're not limited, that we're spiritual beings, and then we can have impetus and faith to try to reattain that state of consciousness. All right, why don't we go on? Text 2. Name vidu suragana Prabhavang namahashayaha Ahamadihi devanam Maharshinam cha sarvashaha. Yeah. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Purport. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. No one is greater than him. He is the cause of all causes. Here it is also stated that by the Lord personally that he is the cause of all the demigods and sages. Even the demigods and great sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So what is the position of the so-called scholars of this tiny planet? No one can understand why this Supreme God comes to earth as an ordinary human being and executes such wonderful, uncommon activities. One should know, then, that scholarship is not the qualification necessary to understand Krishna. Even the demigods and the great sages have tried to understand Krishna by their mental speculation, and have failed to do so. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is clearly said that even the great demigods are not able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They can speculate to the limits of their imperfect senses and can reach the opposite conclusion of impersonalism, of something not manifested by the three qualities of material nature, or they can imagine something by mental speculation, but it is not possible to understand Krishna by such foolish speculation. Here the Lord indirectly says that if anyone wants to know the absolute truth, quote, "Here I am present as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am the Supreme," close quote. One should know this. Although one cannot understand the inconceivable Lord who is personally present, he nonetheless exists. We can actually understand Krishna, who is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, simply by studying his words in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. The conception of God as some ruling power or as the impersonal Brahman can be reached by persons who are in the inferior energy of the Lord. But the personality of Godhead cannot be conceived unless one is in the transcendental position. Because most men cannot understand Krishna in his actual situation, out of his causeless mercy he descends to show favor to such speculators. Yet despite the Supreme Lord's uncommon activities, these speculators, due to contamination in the material energy, still think that the impersonal Brahman is the Supreme. Only the devotees who are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord can understand by the grace of the Supreme Personality that he is Krishna. The devotees of the Lord do not bother about the impersonal Brahmanic conception of God. Their faith and devotion bring them to surrender immediately unto the Supreme Lord. And out of the causeless mercy of Krishna, they can understand Krishna. No one else can understand him. So even great sages agree. What is Atma? What is the Supreme? It is he whom we have to worship. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakya. So, Name Vidu Sudagana. So here Krishna is speaking about how, and this comes up again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, that he remains hidden. He doesn't reveal himself to anyone just because they may be a big scholar or whatever. He responds only to love and devotion. And he says in the 18th chapter, conclusively, Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyastasmi tattvataha. That word tattvat is very important. It means to understand me in truth, one has to be devoted to me. He reveals himself proportionally to that proportion of devotion. And so, what does that mean? It means that Krishna is within our heart. He understands exactly where we're coming from. And if we're trying to challenge him, or if we're trying to simply pretend to believe in Krishna for some exploitative reason, then we're not going to understand him at all. We're not going to benefit or experience the bliss of Krishna consciousness. It really does depend on our recognizing ourselves as really helpless without the aid of the Lord and his representatives. That our position is very, very tenuous. We're walking around in these machines called material bodies, and they're very destructible, imperfect, full of ignorance. Krishna is Satchidananda. His body is Satchidananda Vigraha. Vigraha means form. So he's Sat, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So as Prabhupada said, now let's compare our own body. Is it eternal? Obviously not. Is it full of bliss? Not really. Sometimes we experience a little pleasure, but it's not full of bliss all the time. And it's full of knowledge? No, there's millions of things we don't know. So that's a material body. It's very, very imperfect. But Krishna's body is pure spirit. There's not a tinge of materiality to it. And so he exists on that plane, but he's inviting us back. He's not saying, okay, you people are eternally damned. Never, never. There's always another chance. We always keep evolving up, up, up. And yes, we may be thrown down in the body of a dog, like be acting doggish, but that's a temporary situation. Dogs don't have any karma. They're not responsible for acting this way or that way. They're just working out their sentence in the body of a dog, and they'll come up, 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 eventually back to the human form of life. And the human form of life is very rare, and it's very meaningful, responsible. That's why I always like to give this verse from the 11th canto where Krishna speaks. He says, Labdva sudurlamam idam bahu sambhavante manushyam artadam anityam apiya dhira. Turnam yatetana patedana mrityavad niksheya saya vishaya sarvatakshyat. Sorry. So labda means to attain. We have attained labdva sudurlabham, the very difficult and rare form of human life. After many births, bahu sambhavante, literally many births. Manusham, there's the same word, English and Sanskrit is practically the same. Manusham, a human form, which is artadam. It can give the ultimate good, the ultimate value of existence. In lower forms you can't know, they just don't have the intelligence, But artadam, but like all forms, it's temporary. Who can argue it? Anityam. So one has to be dhira. This is a very important quality. D-H-I-R-A. Dhira means sober-minded. Let's think, what should I really strive for? What's worth striving for in this life? If we just let the lower animal propensities take over, okay, I'll strive for the greatest immediate pleasure. But then chances are you're going to get into drugs after that, because that's what drugs do. They give you immediate high, But then what? Then you come down and you're worse off than you were before. You do damage to yourself. It's self-destructive, But that's the mode of ignorance, down to the mode of ignorance. But in the mode of goodness, you inquire, what is the real ultimate good? And this is the word shreya in Sanskrit, especially niksheya, the ultimate good. Not just the immediate titillation of the senses, but the ultimate good for the soul, for me, for my eternal benefit. So therefore, he says, if one is really dhira, turnam, immediately, without wasting any time, yateta, strive for And, as long as the body hasn't debilitated, you still have your body in good shape. No, but anumrityu means death is following you on your shoulder all the time, so don't waste any time. Yavat, nikshayasaya, the word nikshaya, ultimate good, which is to transcend the bodily concept of life, to understand with pure spirit that we're eternal servants of Krishna, eternal servants of God, and that we should strive to return back home to the spiritual world, which is available to us if we become pure devotees. Means that our only mission in life, our only desire, is to serve the Lord and His devotees and to relish the rasa, the real taste there, the pleasure which is much greater than any material pleasure. And because that, then he ends the verse, Vishayakala Sarvataksa, because after all, in all those other forms that we inhabited, we tasted all varieties of sense gratification. And where has it gotten us? Another body which is going to die, get old, right? In other words, it hasn't gotten us anywhere. Your next body and the transmigration of the soul is the foundation of the whole philosophy. We are eternal. We were never born. I made a little ditty out of it, you know. Every body dies. Every space body dies. In other words, who can deny that every single organism dies? Hold on. Every body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. It's all there. So this verse that Krishna speaks, he says, you've already tasted all that. Don't go there anymore. You learn the science of bhakti. You'll end up in a platform of way greater pleasure. And it'll last to take you all the way back to Godhead, and you'll be reinstated in your original swarup, your original position. That's the nikshayas that we should strive for. Now, do we have faith in it? Maybe not so much. Acquiring that faith you can attain from reading Prabhupada's books, from associating with devotees, and from chanting the holy name. If you chant Hare Krishna enough, then you'll realize it yourself. This is Krishna will be speaking for me within the heart. That don't waste time on sense gratification. It's like a razor's edge. Yes, there's discipline, there's a struggle, but this is a worthy struggle. Struggling for material things is a waste of time. It's shrama evi kevalam. It's a lot of struggle and the only result is the struggle itself. It's not worth it, you know. So we've been handed the lottery ticket. We won the lottery, human beings, and we got a clue to our eternal life. So we should cash it in by chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. All right, any more questions? Okay. But you have to pick up the mic. It's sitting there. We have a whole audience out there, you know, they're all over the country. Yeah, there's a camera there. And there's mics, although we don't have amplification here, it's being amplified there. So, yes, so say something.
My question is, so we some of us have went into the 5th dimension, and a lot of us are finding out that we come from different stars, like different planets, like we're not human. Like there's this called Gaia, and it's been talking about how some of us are. I've studied Pleiadians, Arcturians. Everybody knows reptilians. They're famous down here. It was the first, but you actually look like a Pleiadian.
No kidding. No one said that before.
But why? So what are we? Are we aliens in human form?
We don't belong here. With these bodies, any physical body is alien to the spirit soul. But we have to now learn the science of bhakti. There's a certain way of acting and understanding by which you have great faith that you're on the path. Otherwise, you can get off into a million different things. So we are pure spirit, which means that there's a verse, and it's good to be familiar with the shlokas, because this is the words of God right here. Najayate, mriyate, va kadachan, naya bhutva bhavitavanabuya. It says, for the soul, there is never birth nor death at any time. We have not come into being, will not come into being, will not come into... We've existed. Aja nitya shasvato, we are unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. We are not slain when the body is slain. The body is ultimately slain, either by old age, death, disease, or a bullet. Right? Somehow or other, this body is temporary. We know that. But we are not temporary. This difference between the soul and the body is the first essential thing. So what is that soul? You may think, and maybe you are. Maybe you at one time was on a different planet, but that doesn't matter. The idea is that we all originate from the spiritual world, where there's nobody dies, where there is eternal existence and no anxiety. Vaikuntha is another name for that world. So that's where we want to get back to. And we don't want to waste any time. Mm-hmm. And so it's important to focus on this knowledge that's been given to us by this Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who was a fully self-realized soul and was sent here in order to teach us. Just like they had this, they used to talk about it, you don't hear it so much, channeling. You know? Oh yes, I'm channeling such and such rishi from a million years ago. So Prabhupada was essentially doing that, although he didn't call it that. But he's channeling the words of Krishna and the words of all the great sages who came before him. And they're telling us in simple words, you don't belong here. You are a child of God, you belong in the spiritual world. And all of us have a place there. But we need to retrain ourselves, because our mentality, our mind is conditioned and is attracted to this world. So in the human form of life, you can control the mind, you can control the senses by superior intelligence. And that comes from learning this Shastra, this Gita. So we advise you, we can supply you with another copy of the Bhagavad Gita, and you don't lose it this time. Yeah, and read it regularly, and then you come to class. We have these classes every week. I've been doing these classes since '89. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We used to have 4 nights a week. Now we have 3 nights a week. But Thursday night we have a wonderful program next door called the Krishna Lounge, where we have nice chanting and a little philosophy and a nice vegan prasadam. And you're absolutely welcome tomorrow night.
I've been looking for this.
Yeah, you can come tomorrow. Don't come tomorrow at 7:15. Is it?
Tomorrow is Wednesday.
Tomorrow is Thursday.
We're stuck in the twilight.
Tomorrow is Wednesday. I'm wrong.
The twilight.
Okay. I'm sorry. So come tomorrow to Wednesday class, and then Thursday you can come to that.
I just got a quick comment. If that's
We're
all
out of
right.
time.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
I got carried away. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Sorry, Raj.
That's okay.
We'll try it again tomorrow. All right, so we will... Did we get through 2? All right, so we'll start on 3 tomorrow, right? Yo Mama Jamanadinja. Okay.